Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be working on my 1985 Audi coupe. So I bought this thing a while ago, 4 or 5 years ago probably. Actually it's probably been longer than that. Bought it as a project car, didn't really run when I got it. Got it running, put a new clutch in, did a bunch of other work, and it's just kind of been sitting. I mentioned I was having some shifting problems earlier this year. I couldn't find reverse, but it happened to be something really simple. Actually what happened was this USB charger had fallen down underneath in the console at some point and was getting stuck underneath the shift linkage down there. So it's kind of rolling around, and every once in a while it gets stuck underneath the linkage, then I wouldn't have any reverse. So I actually bought all kinds. I bought a short throw shift kit for it. I was going to put that on, and then I found this thing jammed down there. So easy fix. We'll eventually put that short throw shift kit in too, I think, but we've got a bunch of other stuff that needs to be addressed first. One of the things we're going to dive into today is the fuel system. It's kind of a mess. I'll show you what we got. So at some point, the underneath this car is super solid. There's no rust on the body, but at some point the fuel line's rusted through. You can see the original lines are still there, and someone just ran a hose to fix everything. Zip tied a bunch of hose up. And then here's what the fuel filter looks like. Fuel pump. And everything's just really rusty, and it's actually leaking gas now, so it's got all these splices all over the place that just don't look, they're just not safe. And brake lines are getting pretty bad too, so I'll probably have to do something about the brake lines there as well. But today I just want to kind of get a start on this thing. I'm going to drain the gas out of it and then tear some of this garbage off here. I think I'm just gonna, I'm not sure if I'm gonna do a roll of stainless, 304 stainless fuel line that I may try and put in there. But I don't have any couplings right now, so I'm just gonna get this stuff out and go from there. So you can see it looks pretty bad underneath here. One of the biggest areas of concern for me is where the fuel line's actually hooked to the gas tank right there. Looks pretty bad, so I don't know how those nipples look on the tank. Gotta get those lines off and take a closer look. But I'm gonna probably just pull these fuel lines off and drain the gas out, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so first I'm just gonna put a clamp on here, the vice grips, just to control the flow of the fuel. Got a few of these zip ties off here. Alright, so it helps when we get the right line. So I'm just going to drain this tank, and then I'll just dump this right in the truck since that thing's about empty. This gas isn't very old, so it's still good. Alright, so I got the back two hoses off the tank. The tank actually looks like it's in decent shape. There's a little bit of rust on one of those nipples, but it doesn't look too bad. Next, I think I'm just going to see if I can get this whole assembly out of here with the accumulator on here and the pump and the filter. Everything's pretty rusty though, so I don't think it's going to come out real easy. Figured these would probably just break off. The first one actually came out. Tripod just a little too tall. There we go. Alright, so here's what we have. This is the assembly I need to rebuild here. Looks pretty bad. So all this stuff is still functional. It's just getting some leaks because everything's getting so rusty. So the pump, I think I can save. Obviously I'm trying to do this on a budget because the car is not really worth much. So the pump is like 200 bucks. I think I can reuse that, get that cleaned up, and put a coat of paint on it. This accumulator here obviously is beyond saving. So that's about 200 bucks for that accumulator. And then here's just the fuel filter. I already have a fuel filter for it. And then I gotta get this other filter. And then from the tank up to this assembly will be rubber hoses, and then from here up to the injection on the motor will be steel lines, stainless steel. So, but for now I'm just going to soak down all these fittings, see if I can get this thing apart later. And I'll order some parts. Alright, so I've got all these fuel pump brackets cleaned up. They're looking pretty rough, pretty rusty. I'm just going to spray them down with this rust encapsulator from Eastwood. Got a couple different kinds. This is just like a black paint. You can paint right over rust. And this is like a rubberized coating. So I'm going to try the paint first. I don't know how it's going to stick this aluminum fuel pump, but we'll give it a shot. I did spray all this stuff down with brake cleaner too, just to try and get the oil and gas off. So hopefully this stuff will stick. All right. So here's a new setup. New accumulator, kept the same fittings, cleaned up the fuel pump, sprayed the bracket, put some new rubber bushings on here. Try and get this back in place, and then we'll start running the hoses. I'll also have a new fuel filter. Alright, so here's where the fuel line's going to the car, into the tank. The tank's actually in the back seat on this. I'm just going to pull this rubber grommer out of the way if I can. And check out the nipples going into the tank. Alright. So the return line looks like it's brand new. Feed line, it's got some rust on it. But it's really solid yet, so I think I'll just get this cleaned up a little bit, and I'm going to spray some of that rust converter on it just so it sort of stop the rust on there. It's not leaking, so it should last for years yet, especially since this isn't driven in the winter anymore. Kind of a hard area to get to, so I'm just gonna really soak it down, let it dry for a while. Alright, so I've got the fuel filter mounted up there. Fuel pumps all mounted. I'm going to tear out some of these old lines that are all spliced together with hose. And then we'll splice them in up here. I was going to replace them right all the way up to the fuel distributor, but I don't think I've got enough fuel lines, so we'll just splice it here, and then that should be good enough. The rest of the line's in good shape. Alright, so I'm just going to try and line this up a little bit. Use a marker and just kind of mark this line where I've got to make some bends. I already flared the one side of it. It's not going to be perfect. Alright, so this is the first fuel line I bent up. So I'm just going to do a inverted flare on this side. And I'm kind of new to this, so I screwed a couple of these up. Essentially you take the flaring die, this is 5/16, put it on here. Crank this down until it stops. Make sure you're nice and straight on there. Alright, there's the first one. It's a little off center, but hopefully this will straighten it out a bit. Alright, so there's the flare. The fitting just tucks up against that, so looks pretty good. We'll get this one installed and then do the other line. Looks pretty good. Try and clean it out to make sure there's no metal shavings getting into the fuel line. Now we'll get these put back in place and secured up there, and then we'll kind of go from there. Alright, so here's what I've got going. This is where I spliced in the fuel line. Everything I'm going forward is in good shape. It took me a few times to get these bent up and make them fit decent. Got a new fuel filter here. new lines going here. This is a return line. New accumulator. Clean up the fuel pump. New lines here, and a new pre-filter there, and new lines. So I'm gonna dump a couple gallons in and just make sure there's no leaks, and then we'll fire this thing up. Alright, so I've been struggling with this thing. Just really having a tough time getting this to stop leaking. So I put all new hoses on again, and I cleaned up all these fittings to make sure they're nice and smooth, and put some new copper washers on there. So hopefully it'll do it this time. I also had to change the plug on here. These were getting pretty ratty and they're hard to get off, and the wires were getting to be in tough shape. So gotta finish up the plug on the car, this half of it, so we'll get that done quick, and then we'll get this thing back in and give it another shot. These actually have some low temp solder in them, so you just heat them up with a heat gun and it melts the solder. So they come in really handy for stuff like this. And then just for extra protection, I always put a little extra shrink wrap over them. Once it cools down, so you don't melt it right away. This thing's not leaking again. And it is dripping someplace. Where's it dripping? Alright, so here's my setup. We've got the pump assembly here. This is the actual pump itself. It goes into the accumulator and then through the filter. I've just got it drawn from this little gas tank here. And we'll just jump into this battery. See if we can finally see where this thing's leaking from. And I'm wearing safety glasses too, just in case this sprays all over. Alright, it is circulating. Try this again. Yep, I just saw it. So I think it's coming right out of the face of this pump, right around here. It must just be too corroded. Camera probably doesn't pick that up. Try it again. I'm just using a GoPro here, so it probably isn't a good enough camera to see this. Yep, it's coming right out of the side of the pump where you see that little rust spot there. So I need a new pump. There's a little tiny little crack right there. Alright, so I got a new fuel pump here. Direct replacement, aftermarket. It's about 40 bucks on Amazon. Should be nearly identical. Actually, it looks exactly the same. So I'll get this thrown in quick. And then we'll try this hopefully one last time. Alright, so I got the new pump in. Since the hose is bigger, I had to go with the reducer on this side, which isn't ideal, but it should work fine. So I'll throw this whole assembly back in and give this one more shot. Hopefully this takes care of the leak. Alright, so we'll check this one more time. Here's kind of how the fuel lines look. Up into the new filter and pump. Not perfect, but it should be a lot better than what it was. So fire this thing up and see if it leaks, and I just hope to God it doesn't. Exhaust leak right there. Otherwise, no fuel leaks. Alright, so I had it run for about 20 minutes. No more leaks, finally. Next up, I'm going to start pulling off these body panels, all the molding, and see if I can get some of this damage fixed and the rust. But that is going to be for the next one. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.